Hey guys, before we jump into the video here, I briefly want to go over a charity event that one of my friends is doing for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. So unfortunately this past year, one of my best friends from college passed away from cancer. And another one of my best friends growing up from high school has unfortunately had to battle cancer twice in his life now. Fortunately, after beating it twice, he is now working on the Vision of the Year campaign for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. I'm gonna toss him a donation here, but if any of you have ever felt like subbing on Twitch or donating to me, please, I'd actually prefer it if you guys toss that money at the Vision of the Year fund instead for my friend Matt. Great guy, incredibly strong guy. It's insane what he's been through and been able to make it through, and also for my friend Derek, who unfortunately did pass away from brain cancer this year. Yeah, it's been tough for a lot of cancer patients out there. And if any of you are going through cancer or have loved ones going through cancer, you have my greatest sympathies and best of luck. And again, if you do feel like tossing a donation to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, I'm dropping the link below, and it would be much appreciated. Thank you. What's up guys, Lvladen here, and today I'm coming at you with a video explaining the best builds that you can play as a Red Paladin in PvP in the new hotfixed patch. So for those of you that are unaware, in the last 4 weeks, RET has been buffed 3 out of 4 times. And it's finally feeling pretty good. The bug fixes have been fixed. Sun's Avatar and Dawn Light are working correctly for the most part. And overall, it's been a pretty great time to be playing the Red Paladin right now. So let's start off with the talents here. So the talents are going to look pretty familiar. This is close to what we played as Herald in the Season 1 build. There's a couple flex points here. Of course, on the Paladin tree, if you're going to play Holy Reprieve, you can play this with playing with another H-Pal or another Red Pal in a solo shuffle lobby. Otherwise, I typically take Consecrated Ground, something like this. And then in the Retribution side, you have a couple different options. 2 options I've been messing around with is either Zealot's Fervor in Art of War if I'm in a heavily based melee matchup, meaning I'll have high uptime for my Crusading Strikes, and I'll play this build. If not, I will take 1 point out of Zealot's Fervor, put it in Rush of Light, and swap to Righteous Cause. And I'll play this against a team where I'm pretty much exclusively kiting around or not able to actually catch up to them and take advantage of Crusading Strikes. That way I have a little bit more haste on occasion. And then there's one more build, which is the 1 Minute Wings build, which the main difference between the two, and both got equally buffed by the changes to Sun's Avatar and Dawnlight. But if you notice, if you play the 1 Minute Wings build, your Sun's Avatar will be higher damage than Dawnlight. And if you play the Radiant Glory Crusade build, your Dawnlights will be higher damage than your Sun's Avatars. This build is definitely more bursty, has higher sustain during its burst period, but the downside is that if you get shut down during your 1 Minute Wings, you have to wait longer to get those Dawnlight Sun's Avatars out. So if you're ever in a matchup where you think you'll have high uptime on the Sun's Avatar, and Sun's Avatar channels its damage even through CC, it's fine to take 1 Minute Wings. I haven't been playing it as often anymore, but that's primarily because I ended up buying a proc trinket first, and then when I have enough conquest to buy my on-use badge trinket, I will definitely give the 1 Minute Wings go another test here. All right, other important notes here that you want to keep an eye out for. If you are in Blitz and you're going to be team fighting, like you're team fighting for sure, taking Judger Executioner is not a bad option, especially with the 40% damage increase that we've got on Final Verdict over the last 4 weeks. This talent can actually pump. The only thing is I'm not entirely sure where I like taking the talent point from. It's easier to take a talent point from if you're playing the 1 Minute Wings build, because you can just drop 3 seconds of Divine Wrath for it. Otherwise, you would probably end up dropping the Zealot's Fervor talent to pick up Judger Executioner. One thing to keep in mind, it's also valuable in Arena, but not against pet cleaves. So that's anything with a Demon Warlock, Unholy DK, Windwalker Monk, BM Hunter, anything with a lot of pets, I wouldn't run Judge Jury Executioner against. You're not going to get great value out of that there. All right, that's pretty much it for the standard talents. Nothing else changes too frequently. I mean, there are a handful of talents where you could maybe like make a case for taking Light Celerity and Selfless Healer, but I don't play that currently at the moment. As for PvP talents, we don't have too many great options. You pretty much run Blessing of Sanctuary baseline. I run Searing Glare into double melee comps, and comps where I'm going to be hitting maybe a caster melee, but we are going on the caster exclusively. Otherwise, if you're fighting double caster, I don't typically play Searing Glare. I'll play something like Blessing of Spellwarding plus, what's the talent here? Spellbreaker. I really like this talent setup into double caster cleaves, and then into pretty much anything else. It's kind of a flex point. Like I'll play something like Searing Glare plus Luminescence. If you're playing into a DH warrior cleave, you could even take something like Spellbreaker to deal a lot of the Demon Hunter's damage back to him. But in that case, it's a melee cleave. You'll probably get better value out of Searing Glare. I love running Spellbreaker into Boomies. So maybe Warrior Boomy. Spellbreaker deals a lot of damage. Same with against Arcane Mages. Every tick of Arcane missiles actually triggers Spellbreaker. So they end up doing a lot of damage back to themselves with Spellbreaker here. Otherwise, it's kind of up to you. We don't have many great talents, especially in 2v2 arena. Hallowed Ground you can run against DKs and Devastation Evokers, but even then, it's not super great choices that we have here. But hopefully this gets updated in a future patch. All right, let's jump on to the gear section here. So in terms of gear, your stat priority is Versatility, then Mastery, then Haste, and then Crit. In that order. I have full epics right now, but I am replacing a couple pieces on the left side. I have my warmongering gear to get rid of still. We should be running the 4-set, and you take the 4-set in everywhere except for the shoulders. You can grab the warmongering shoulders for now, and then craft a versatility mastery shoulders in the future. And then in terms of gems, I'm running the Masterful Sapphire in all my gem sockets, aside from my Enduring socket here. Well, actually, I was testing out Determined Bloodstone. It used to be Enduring. I'm pretty sure I'm going to play the precog gem in the future, but you can kind of play whatever here you want. I actually wouldn't necessarily recommend Bloodstone. It's either going to be Determined Bloodstone. It's either Enduring or the precog gem. Don't play Determined. I was just testing this out to see if it was good, and it does like under 0.5% of my damage every game, so not the best. All right, for the enchants here, I run the versatility ring enchants. I run Defender's March on my boots. You can run the speed enchant if you really want to. That's Scout's March, I believe. I run the strength and the stam enchant on the legs. On my weapon, I run Authority of Radiant Power. And then speed on my bracers and chance of leeching fangs on my cloak, and then crystalline radiance here. And I believe that's it for the enchants. Actually, I'll laugh if someone in the chat eventually lets me know that I'm missing an enchant, which is totally possible, but yeah, that's what I run for now. That caps me out at exactly 30% versatility in PvP combat. And then after that, I probably might end up crafting a higher versatility set here. So let me show you guys what I mean. Fly over to the PvP dummy so I can show you my stats here. But after 30% versatility starts to incur a diminishing return value, I actually think it's still valuable until you get to like the 20% diminishing return. So the first is a 10% DR after like 23,400 versatility. So that puts you at roughly 30%. Mastery, I believe, is 54% here, which is, it's pretty high. And then haste, I'm only at 8% haste, and I'm probably not going to add any haste to my gear set until next season when we get even higher versatility in mastery overall. But yeah, right now, this is my setup for gear. And let's go on to the rotation. All right, so I'm going to go over the Radiant Glory rotation. I have a previous video covering the 1 minute wings build that goes over everything that you need to know there. But right now I'm not playing the 1 minute wings build, so I'm going to recommend you guys check out the Radiant Glory build. Now, there are two openers for the Radiant Glory build. The first one is which you have the time to get a Blade of Justice out, and the second one is you don't have time to get a Blade of Justice out. The ideal opener here, and this is into teams that, you know, your teammates are going for CC as you're running over, and maybe you're going to haunt the primary kill target. The max damage value that you can get out of this is Judge into Blade of Justice into Final Reckoning, Wake of Ashes, Final Verdict, Divine Toll, Final Verdict, Judgment, Final Verdict, Hammer of Wrath, Final Verdict, Hammer of Wrath, Final Verdict, Judgment, Final Verdict, Hammer of Wrath, Final Verdict, so on and so forth. And the main reason, the one thing that you really want to keep track of here is making sure that you're pushing Judgment on cooldown as your generator. You're not worrying too much about maintaining Holy Flames at the moment. Just like with Hammer of Wrath, if you have to choose between Judgment or Hammer of Wrath, I would pick Judgment. And the reason is you don't know when your 4-set's going to proc. And if your 4-set procs and you have a bunch of Judgments stacked up on the target, that's awesome. That's a ton of damage. But if your 4-set procs and you're spamming out all those Final Verdicts and you only had one Greater Judgment on the target, you're losing out on a decent amount of damage. So you want to make sure that you are pushing Judgment as frequently as you can. And if you get that 4-set proc, feels good, man. Absolute monster damage right there. But if you don't, you're only chucking out like 5 or 600k Final Verdicts that are unbuffed by essentially everything. So that's the one thing that you want to watch out for. The major priority with this rotation is getting your Wake of Ashes on cooldown immediately, instantly, every time. And that goes along with the second rotation I'll talk about, which is just the fast rotation, which is simply this. You Judge, then Final Reckoning, then Wake of Ashes. The downside of this is that that first Final Verdict that you're going to get out is not buffed by Of Dusk and Dawn. It's actually going to be your third Final Verdict that will be buffed by Of Dusk and Dawn after the Divine Toll. Not the biggest of deals, but then you're also losing out on an additional 3% damage on your opening burst rotation. But the upside is you're trading speed for this rotation here. You're getting your Wake of Ashes out one global earlier. All right, so in this rotation, you just Judge, Final Reckoning, Wake of Ashes, Final Verdict, Divine Toll, Final Verdict. And if you notice right there, I actually, I did not have the Blessing of Dawn buff on my third Final Verdict. And that's simply because I had previous stacks from the other rotation. But if you do it from a clean stack, like you just spent your Blessing of Dawn stacks on a Final Verdict, or you're clear of the buff, then it's going to be the third Final Verdict that you spend, which will generate that Of Dusk and Dawn because of your Divine Toll. Divine Toll generates a stack. Actually, like anything that generates Holy Power generates a stack. So even if you played Divine Auxiliary with Final Reckoning, that would then generate you one stack, and by stack I mean one charge towards a stack of Blessing of Dawn here. All right, outside of that, the RET rotation is very simple. You see you're at 4 Holy Power. Don't push a generator, don't push a generator, push a spender. You see you're at 5 Holy Power, don't push a generator, push a spender. Even if you're at 5 Holy Power right here. So say I'm like looking right here, and we're on this target. There's no Judgment buff. And you're like, oh, my Judgment's off cooldown. I wanna push Judgment. Just push Final Verdict first, and then Judge, and then your Final Verdict here. Speaking of which, I got a proc right there. If you get the proc, disrupt your rotation entirely and spam Final Verdict. Just spam Final Verdict only. And the main reason you do that is even if you don't have a Judgment or a Holy Flames on the target, you want to get as many Final Verdicts out as you can for a chance at setting up a Radiant Glory proc of Dawnlight and Sun's Avatar. Now, most of the time, you'll have at least a Judgment stack or 2 during your proc, which is great. But if you see the proc and you have Judgment off cooldown, use the proc instead. Just spam Final Verdict, and then when you're out of Holy Power, then you Judgment, and then Final Verdict again. I'm not sure if that differs from the PvE rotation. Actually, in PvE, I'm fairly certain that you don't even play Herald. But in PvP, you definitely want to prioritize spamming that proc of Final Verdicts, your 4-set here, the winning streak, so you can actually try and get a proc of Radiant Glory. All right, so that's about it for the rotation here. Let's jump into the macros. All right, like I do for all my my guides here, I'm gonna drop all the macros that I use in the description of the video. I get a couple of questions about why I have the exorcism icon on my bars. That's actually just a macro that I used the change name icon and found the exorcism icon and selected that for my Blade of Justice. Same with the Sacred Shield icon for Shield of Vengeance. That's all it is. It's just a change. It's not a different spell. It's just an icon change here. In terms of the useful macros that I use, the Final Reckoning macro is probably the most important one. It just allows me to use Final Reckoning at my cursor. Again, if you guys can't see them because of the text on the screen, just take a look at the description in the video and they're all there. I have a bunch of Party 1, Party 2 macros for all my blessings, and some mouseover macros for when I'm in BG Blitz or BGs or anything. And then I have a cancel aura macro. All this does is if I push my Blessing of Protection and then I push my cancel aura button, it goes away so a mage can't spell steal it. Same with freedom here. And then outside of that, that's pretty much it. Macros are pretty standard. I'm gonna link my previous add-on guide. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice here. I'm gonna link my previous add-on guide with a timestamp of when I start going over my add-ons, because nothing has changed since the previous video and my add-on guide is pretty extensive. So if you want to check that out, go for it. And then outside of that, I think RET is doing okay in the meta right now. I think we might see our first RET Paladin in the AWC this weekend, which is pretty cool. Looking forward to that. I definitely think RET Warrior, specifically with a Resto Druid, is definitely an S tier comp right now. I think RET as a whole is probably like a solid A tier in most brackets. I finally have a 50% win rate in Solo Shuffle now. We're 25-22 rating, number 10 spot. If you guys weren't tuning into the stream or checking out my videos from really early in the season, in the patch, I went from getting rank 1, number 2 overall, to having a 30% win rate in Solo Shuffle. It was so horrendous. It was so funny. That was a funny time. But that was because RET was plagued with bugs and undertuned in the really early part of the season here. I think we actually got above 2400 before the second round of the last buffs, which is pretty cool. And then in threes, I'm playing primarily RET Warrior Resto Druid on my main, and then on my alt, I'm playing a bunch of variants of RET Warrior. Played it with a Mistweaver, played it with a Preservation Evoker. Of non-Resto Druids, I think Preservation felt better than Mistweaver, but to be quite honest, neither one felt nearly as good as Resto Druid right now. RET Warrior just protects Resto Druid so well, and then Resto Druid can kind of avoid CC on its own, which is a really big downside of playing RET Warrior. Like, if you're against double casters, they can just freely cast on you, and you know, a Resto Druid can play max range, or they can kind of clone people up close, and they can bear form polymorphs, which is all fantastic. Kind of make up for some of the RET Warrior weaknesses. So yeah, let me know in the comments what you guys think about RET this season, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace.